C. Suetonius Tranquillus was the son of a Roman knight who commanded a legion on the side on this. C. Suetonius Tranquillus was the son of a Roman knight who commanded a legion on the side of Otho at the battle which decided the fate of the empire in favor of Vitellius. From incidental notices in the following history, we learn that he was born towards the close of the reign of Vespasian, who died in the year 79 of the Christian era. He lived till the time of Hadrian, under whose administration he filled the office of secretary, until, with several others, he was dismissed for presuming on familiarities with the Empress Sabina, of which we have no further account than that they were unbecoming his position in the imperial court. How long he survived this disgrace, which appears to have befallen him in the year 121, we are not informed, but we find that the leisure afforded him by his retirement was employed in the composition of numerous works, of which the most important was the Lives of the 12 Caesars. The plan adopted by Suetonius in his Lives of the 12 Caesars led him to be more diffuse on their personal conduct and habits than on public events. He writes memoirs rather than history. When we stop to gaze in a museum or gallery on the antique busts of the Caesars, we perhaps endeavor to trace in their sculptured physiognomy the characteristics of those princes who, for good or evil, were in their times masters of the destinies of a large portion of the human race. The pages of Suetonius will amply gratify this natural curiosity. In them we find a series of individual portraits sketched to the life with perfect truth and rigorous impartiality. La Harpe remarks of Suetonius, he is scrupulously exact and strictly methodical. He omits nothing which concerns the person whose life he is writing. He relates everything but paints nothing. His work is in some sense a collection of anecdotes, but it is very curious to read and consult. This edition of Suetonius's Caesars is appropriately embellished by the celebrated series of portraits copied from authentic busts of the emperors by Visconti and now re-engraved for the illustration of this work. The perfection of marble or statue portraiture was attained in Rome soon after the conquest of Greece, BC 200, when not only the choicest works of Grecian art were transferred to Rome, but the most accomplished sculptors and painters also. Portraiture in marble became a passion and a fashion, and we learn from the contemporary literature of the period how faithful these portraits were. It flourished till the decline began under Commodus, when successive revolutions and conquests laid Rome in ruins. The majority of those statues were buried in the fall, many thrown into the Tiber, and nearly all forgotten in the dark ages, which fell like a pall over the vanquished city. And it was not till art in Rome had a new birth, after sleeping 1,000 years, that those marble and bronze portraits were begun to be resurrected and gradually, down to the present day, restored to the museums of Rome and other capitals of Europe. Combining as it does amusement and information, Suetonius's Lives of the Caesars was held in such estimation that, so soon after the invention of printing as the year AD 1500, no fewer than 18 editions had been published, and nearly 100 have since been added to the number. Critics of the highest rank have devoted themselves to the task of correcting and commenting on the text, and the work has been translated into every European language. Of the English translations, that of Dr. Alexander Thomson, published in 1796, has been made the basis of the present, by the suppression of about 24 lines in the entire work, which have been indicated by asterisk, 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 asterisk. We have produced a work unobjectionable for general reading. The suppressed passages refer to grossly unnatural crimes, which were probably never committed. But the relation of which was likely prompted by the political party rancor of the period. Julius Caesar, the divine, lost his father when he was in the 16th year of his age, and the year following, being nominated to the office of High Priest of Jupiter. Julius Caesar Divus. Romulus, the founder of Rome, had the honor of an apotheosis conferred on him by the Senate under the title of Quirinus to obviate the people's suspicion of his having been taken off by a conspiracy of the patrician order. Political circumstances again concurred with popular superstition to revive this posthumous adulation in favor of Julius Caesar, the founder of the empire, who also fell by the hands of conspirators. It is remarkable in the history of a nation so jealous of public liberty that in both instances they bestowed the highest mark of human homage upon men who owed their fate to the introduction of arbitrary power. Pliny informs us that Caius Julius, the father of Julius Caesar, a man of praetorian rank, died suddenly at Pisa. Julius Caesar, the divine, lost his father when he was in the 16th year of his age. In the year from the foundation of Rome, 1670, AC before Christ, about 92. And the year following, being nominated to the office of High Priest of Jupiter, Flamentialis. This was an office of great dignity, but subjected the holder to many restrictions. He was not allowed to ride on horseback, nor to absent himself from the city for a single night. His wife was also under partial restraints and could not be divorced. If she died, the Flamen resigned his office because there were certain sacred rites which he could not perform without her assistance. Besides other marks of distinction, he wore a purple robe called laena and a conical mitre called apex. Julius Caesar, the divine, lost his father when he was in the 16th year of his age, and the year following, being nominated to the office of High Priest of Jupiter, he repudiated Cosutia, who was very wealthy, although her family belonged only to the equestrian order, and to whom he had been contracted when he was a mere boy. He then married Cornelia, the daughter of Cinna, who was 4 times consul, and had by her shortly afterwards a daughter named Julia. Resisting all the efforts of the dictator Sylla to induce him to divorce Cornelia, he suffered the penalty of being stripped of his sacerdotal office, his wife's dowry, and his own patrimonial estates, and being identified with the adverse faction. The two powerful parties were contending at Rome for the supremacy, Sylla being at the head of the faction of the nobles, while Marius espoused the cause of the people. Sylla suspected Julius Caesar of belonging to the Marian party because Marius had married his aunt, Julia. Resisting all the efforts of the dictator Sylla to induce him to divorce Cornelia, he suffered the penalty of being stripped of his sacerdotal office, his wife's dowry, and his own patrimonial estates, and being identified with the adverse faction, was compelled to withdraw from Rome. After changing his place of concealment nearly every night, he wandered about for some time in the Sabine territory. After changing his place of concealment nearly every night, although he was suffering from a quartan ague, and having effected his release by bribing the officers who had tracked his footsteps, he at length obtained a pardon through the intercession of the Vestal Virgins and of Mamercus Emilius and Aurelius Cotta, his near relatives. We are assured that when Sylla, having withstood for a while the entreaties of his own best friends, persons of distinguished rank, at last yielded to the importunity, he exclaimed, either by a divine impulse or from a shrewd conjecture, "Your suit is granted, and you may take him among you. But know," he added, "that this man, for whose safety you are so extremely anxious, will, some day or other, be the ruin of the party of the nobles, in defense of which you are leagued with me. For in this one Caesar you will find many a Marius." His first campaign was served in Asia, on the staff of the praetor M. Thermus, and being dispatched into Bithynia. Bithynia in Asia Minor was bounded on the south by Phrygia, on the west by Bosphorus and Propontis, and on the north by the Euxine Sea. Its boundaries towards the east are not clearly ascertained, Strabo, Pliny, and Ptolemy differing from each other on the subject. And being dispatched into Bithynia to bring thence a fleet, he loitered so long at the court of Nicomedes as to give occasion to reports of lewd proceedings between him and that prince. His first campaign was served in Asia, on the staff of the praetor M. Thermus, and being dispatched into Bithynia to bring thence a fleet, he loitered so long at the court of Nicomedes as to give occasion to reports of lewd proceedings between him and that prince, which received additional credit from his hasty return to Bithynia, under the pretext of recovering a debt due to a freedman, his client. The rest of his service was more favorable to his reputation, and when Mytilene was a city in the island of Lesbos, famous for the study of philosophy and eloquence. According to Pliny, it remained a free city, and in power 1,500 years. It suffered much in the Peloponnesian War from the Athenians, and in the Mithridatic from the Romans, by whom it was taken and destroyed. But it soon rose again, having recovered its ancient liberty by the favor of Pompey, and was afterwards much embellished by Trajan, who added to it the splendor of his own name. This was the country of Pittacus, one of the 7 wise men of Greece, as well as of Alcaeus and Sappho. The natives showed a particular taste for poetry, and had, as Plutarch informs us, stated times for the celebration of poetical contests. The rest of his service was more favorable to his reputation, and when Mytilene was taken by storm, he was presented by Thermus with the civic crown. The civic crown was made of oak leaves, and given to him who had saved the life of a citizen. The person thus decorated wore it at public spectacles, and sat next the senators. When he entered, the audience rose up as a mark of respect. He served also in Sicilia, a very extensive country of Hither Asia, lying between Pamphylia to the west, Mount Taurus and Amanus to the north, Syria to the east, and the Mediterranean to the south. It was anciently famous for saffron and haircloth, called by the Romans silicium, was the manufacture of this country. He served also in Cilicia under Servilius Isauricus, but only for a short time, as upon receiving intelligence of Sylla's death, he returned with all speed to Rome in expectation of what might follow from a fresh agitation set on foot by Marcus Lepidus, distrusting, however, the abilities of this leader, and finding the times less favorable for the execution of this project than he had at first imagined, he abandoned all thoughts of joining Lepidus, although he received the most tempting offers. Soon after this civil discord was composed, he preferred a charge of extortion against Cornelius Dolabella, a man of consular dignity who had obtained the honor of a triumph. On the acquittal of the accused, he resolved to retire to Rhodes, a city and an island near the coast of Caria, famous for the huge statue of the sun called the Colossus. The Rhodians were celebrated not only for skill in naval affairs, but for learning, philosophy, and eloquence. During the latter periods of the Roman Republic and under some of the emperor's numbers resorted there to prosecute their studies, and it also became a place of retreat to discontented Romans. On the acquittal of the accused, he resolved to retire to Rhodes, with the view not only of avoiding the public odium which he had incurred, but of prosecuting his studies with leisure and tranquility under Apollonius, the son of Molon, at that time the most celebrated master of rhetoric. While on his voyage thither, in the winter season, he was taken by pirates near the island of Pharmacusa, an island lying off the coast of Asia near Miletus. It is now called Parmosa. And detained by them, burning with indignation for nearly 40 days, his only attendants being a physician and 2 chamberlains, for he had instantly dispatched his other servants and the friends who accompanied him to raise money for his ransom. The ransom, too large for Caesar's private means, was raised by the voluntary contributions of the cities in the Asiatic province, who were equally liberal from their public funds in the case of other Romans who fell into the hands of pirates at that period. 50 talents having been paid down, he was landed on the coast, when, having collected some ships, he lost no time in putting to sea in pursuit of the pirates, and having captured them, inflicted upon them the punishment with which he had often threatened them in jest. At that time Mithridates was ravaging the neighboring districts, and on Caesar's arrival at Rhodes, that he might not appear to lie idle while danger threatened the allies of Rome, he passed over into Asia, and having collected some auxiliary forces, and driven the king's governor out of the province, retained in their allegiance the cities which were wavering and ready to revolt. Having been elected military tribune, the first honor he received from the suffrages of the people after his return to Rome, he zealously assisted those who took measures for restoring the tribunician authority, which had been greatly diminished during the usurpation of Sylla. He likewise, by an act which Plotius, at his suggestion, propounded to the people, obtained the recall of Lucinus Cinna, his wife's brother, and others with him, who, having been the adherents of Lepidus in the civil disturbances, had after that consul's death fled to Sertorius, who commanded in Spain, which law he supported by a speech. During his quaestorship, he pronounced funeral orations from the rostra according to custom in praise of his Aunt Julia and his wife Cornelia. In the panegyric on his aunt, he gives the following account of her own and his father's genealogy on both sides. My Aunt Julia derived her descent by the mother from a race of kings, and by her father from the immortal gods. For the Marci Rex, it will be easily understood, was not a title of dignity in a Roman family, but the surname of the Marci. Her mother's family deduced from their pedigree from Ancus Marcius, and the Julii, her father's, from Venus, of which stock we are a branch. We therefore unite in our descent to the sacred majesty of kings, the chiefest among men, and the divine majesty of gods, to whom kings themselves are subject.